Good afternoon. I'll call the meeting to order. We are all present. The City of Belleville acknowledges we are meeting today on traditional territory of many nations. We recognize and honor the historic relationship of the Indigenous peoples to this land and acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within them. We recognize all Indigenous peoples, including First Nation, Métis, and Inuit, who call Belleville their home and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship with them. We look forward to fostering a path towards reconciliation and show respect for the Indigenous peoples who first lived and currently live on this land where we all now reside together. Please remain standing for a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chambers minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others, so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Please be seated. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. I note I have one on 10A4, Bell Creek Land Exchange. I own land on Bell Creek. We go to report from closed session now. I need a motion that the minutes of the closed session council meeting held on July 27th, 26th, that the minutes of the closed session council meeting held on July 27th, 26th be approved. Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Discussion, all in favor? Carried. 1.3, personal matters about an identifiable individual, family physician recruitment program incentive request, that pursuant to the manager of physician recruitment and retention's closed session report number MPRR 2026-12, personal matters about an identifiable individual, family physician recruitment program incentive request, the mayor and clerk be authorized to immediately execute a medical service agreement with Dr. Namuna, and the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Enright Miller, seconded by Councillor Chatton. Discussion, all in favor? Carried. We start with a public meeting. Community Improvement Plan, CIP Amendment, refers to item 10A, seeking public feedback on proposed Community Improvement Plan. I'd like to call this public meeting to order and thank you for joining us as the City of Belleville continues its effort to advance development through its Community Improvement Plan. This update is an important step that will allow the city to assess CIP applications and grant funding that could expand support for our highest priority development needs, such as increasing accessible and affordable housing options. Tonight there is a report before council, and the City of Belleville staff will provide a brief presentation outlining the amendment to the CIP that will support the overall administrative framework of the CIP itself. After the presentation, I will first invite members of council to ask any questions they may have. Once questions councils are concluded, I will open the floor for comments from the public. I'd like to ask the clerk, has there been any written comments that we have been received?
Yes, Your Worship. The clerk's office received written correspondence dated April 9th from Alex Weidman.
Okay, thank you. We have Tom and Bailey, I believe, with some slides.
A point of order, Your Worship. There was a second piece of correspondence that was sent to Mayor and Council today that has been shared with the Planning Department.
Okay. So we'll amend that to 2 correspondence. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Bailey?
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of Council, and the public. This presentation today and subsequent report on the Council agenda asks Council to consider an amendment to the City of Belleville's Community Improvement Plan, also known as the CIP. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the Planning Act to hear any concerns from the public. The CIP is the city's tool for supporting projects that help meet Council's strategic priorities, such as building new, affordable, and accessible housing, revitalization of the downtown core, brownfield redevelopment, and overall community improvement. Council approved a new CIP in January 2026 with 15 programs, including new programs aimed at funding housing projects. Since its adoption, staff have found that while all the high-priority housing applications have aligned with the goals of the CIP, some applications meet challenges to align with the city's CIP requirements. For example, it is staff's understanding that some housing development projects pursue funding from multiple sources, including CIP funding. Some of the other funding sources require local approval before they approve more funding for the same project, such as CMHC funding. This can cause delays in overall financing for a project and put the local CIP funding at risk because of a delayed start beyond the city's 6-month requirement to get a building permit. Another example could occur if an applicant is unaware of the funding program offered by the city's CIP. They may only be working with CMHC and then become aware of the city's program, but have already submitted a building permit application to meet the requirements of the larger CMHC program. The proposed amendment today would give council more flexibility within the CIP by allowing staff to present applications to council on a case-by-case basis to request waiving specific administrative requirements or program criteria when a project clearly supports the city's strategic priorities and the primary goals of the CIP, and to allow council to consider applications that are beneficial to the community. This proposed amendment and wording was drafted after reviewing CIPs from other municipalities and written in consultation with the city's solicitor, who specializes in municipal law and local government, and analyzed Section 28 of the Planning Act and Section 106 of the Municipal Act. Council will still be required to approve these applications where a condition is proposed to be waived through a staff report brought to council. The staff report will outline the CIP application details and funding recommendations, identify any requirements that have not been met, provide justification for the requested waiver, and be made available as part of the public record. It is staff's understanding that there are 2 written submissions from the public on this application. Staff will be reviewing them and preparing responses for a future council meeting date.
Okay, we'll start with questions. Any questions from council? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, staff. There's been a couple of questions sent to councillors and the city concerning consultation. Have we had reasonable consultation with the public on this before it's at our public now?
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, this meeting today, this public meeting, this is one of those statutory requirements for it. Any amendments to the CIP requires you to follow through the typical official plan amendment process outlined in the Planning Act. So one of those is the notification that went out 20 days ago, and then this public meeting here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. We've got quite a few in the gallery. We've got people watching. Can you give us an update on the CIP fund, how that's developed, where the funds come from, and how it's executed? Thanks.
Through the mayor to Councillor Kelly and the rest of the council. The CIP has been around for a number of years, but in 2026, January 2026, the city updated the CIP utilizing Housing Accelerator funding that was awarded to the city through the federal government. So that money has been put into all of our CIP funds for the housing projects. So that project itself went through some consultation, and that's where we're at now. We have received a number of applications. We're utilizing that also for the Queen Mary project, the Habitat for Humanity project as well. So this is another, as we've worked through it, obviously through implementation, some issues have come up. So this is something we've identified to help continue facilitating those applications.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, wonder if there's any questions from the floor or comments from the public. As required, I'm supposed to ask 3 times, so I'll ask again. Is there any public comments from the gallery? Going twice. The 3rd time, are there any questions that are from the floor, from the public? Seeing none, I will close this meeting now. Public meeting adjourned. Okay, I need a motion for the minutes of council meeting held on July 27, 26 be approved. Moved by Councillor Sue, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Discussion for meetings, minutes, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Deputation correspondence, none. Need a motion to rise and go in committee of the whole at 4:11 p.m. to hear and consider reports, passing recommendations and resolutions with Councillor Henderson in the chair. Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? Carried.
The agenda shall include, under reports, items that warrant individual attention from council. 10A1, Community Improvement Plan Amendment. And the recommendation reads that pursuant to the Public Principal Planner Report PP-2026-12, an amendment to add a new condition to the Community Improvement Plan, Part 4, General Conditions to provide council the flexibility to approve specific projects that align with or surpass the objectives of the CIP, but would not necessarily meet all of the timelines or administrative eligibility requirements. Be approved. Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Sue. Any comments? Okay, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the report that was provided from staff, and I do have some concerns with respect to kind of the wide spectrum of providing council discretion. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to table the report until the next meeting of council so that staff can develop set criteria for exceptions to the CIP timeline and administrative eligibility requirements, and that the policy include that such expectations will be considered in an open session report to council, and that staff take into consideration any submissions in relation to the public feedback on the proposed CIP amendment. And if I could get a recorded vote on that, please.
Okay. Mayor Ellis? Okay, thank you. Seconded by Mayor Ellis. We're calling for recorded vote. Yes. Go ahead. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, on the motion is to get public feedback. I understood when I spoke to the staff that we had the opportunity to receive that feedback. I just need clarification if we did or we didn't.
Who would like to take that? Yeah. So with a tabling motion, there's no discussion on it. So I'm sorry we can't get that answer for you. Okay.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Chatton?
Yes.
Councillor Enright Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Sue?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No. No.
Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Mayor Ellis?
Yes.
Carried by 8.
Okay, moving on to 10A2, Rail Safety Improvement Program, Whistling Cessation, CP Rail Crossings at Elmwood Road and Mitchell Road, DTOS 2026-09 Rail Safety Improvement Program, Whistling Cessation, CP Rail Crossing at Elmwood Road and Mitchell Road, that pursuant to report DTOS-2026-09 Rail Safety Improvement Program, Whistling Cessation, CP Rail Crossing at Elmwood Road and Mitchell Road, that council approve an application to the Rail Safety Initiative Fund, and that the 2026 capital budget be amended to include Whistling Cessation, CP Rail Crossing at Elmwood Road and Mitchell Road in the amount of $400,000, being funded in the amount of $200,000 from the Asset Management Reserve Fund and $200,000 from the Rail Safety Improvement Program. Could I have a mover of that? Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Brown. Okay, Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This funding was originally in the 2024 capital budget as it's outlined in the report, and it's unfortunate we are looking at amending a budget. I know that's not a practice we want to get into, but given the fact that residents in that area have this request before the city for a number of years, and the city unfortunately has to take on this initiative, not CP Rail itself. And then equally unfortunate is the fact that Transport Canada has not had funding opportunities for the past 3 years. So I think it's incumbent upon us to make that amendment. There is money in the reserve to meet this, and hopefully we have a favorable application. I would also say that if council does pass this motion, I would urge members of the public to reach out to MP Chris Millette and ask for his advocacy and support as this application proceeds through Transport Canada. Clearly we'll be in competition with other municipalities that will also be seeking matching funds. And so I think it's incumbent upon our Member of Parliament to advocate to the Transport Canada in this regard. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Anyone? Councillor Kelly.
Through you, I just spoke to some of the families that, we're hoping for the best interests of this, and Smart family, Galthorpes and Mr. Albright. And I just wanted to say kudos to Councillor Carr and Councillor Brown. I received some literature emails with your names in it, going to bat for the residents in your neck of the woods. So well done. Patient, but well done. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Passed. Okay, 10A3, Municipal Solid Waste and Organics Curbside Collection, Joint Contract of the Municipalities of Quinte West, City of Belleville, Report DT 0S 2026-10, Municipal Solid Waste and Organics Curbside Collection, Joint Contract of the Municipalities of Quinte West and City of Belleville. The pursuant to the Director of Transportation and Operations Services, Report number DT OS 2026-10, Council approved the request for the proposal submission from Environmental 360 Solutions, Inc., be accepted in the estimated amount of $10,449,355.40 plus $1,358. Sorry, am I reading that right? $1,358,416.20 HST for a total dollar amount of $11,807,771.60 over 5 years for the provision of waste management services for curbside collection and disposal processing of collected materials for the City of Belleville for the period of August the 1st, 2027 through July 31st, 2032, including household waste, organics, and small, large, bulky items at their submitted unit rates, this being the highest ranked proposal, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any comments? Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I think Mr. Reid was dealing with this. I sat on that committee before it was dissolved. A question during that committee was the talk of possibly other municipalities joining in their surrounding area to get a better price. Was there any dialogue with outside communities to join in to get a little better price?
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, this contract is awarded in partnership with Quinte West. So Quinte West and the City of Belleville have put together this tender.
I'm just going back to that committee. There was discussion of other smaller communities wanting in with us. Was there any discussion with them?
There was no discussion on the waste side. We are currently working on our hazardous waste contract, which will have a partnership with the 9 member municipalities of former Quinte Waste Solutions.
And who will be the chief, the person in charge, even though it's 2 communities, which community is the one that's going to be looking after the principal part of it?
Quinte West has issued the tender. Each contract will be signed by each municipality.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to offer my support to this particular contract. That while I acknowledge that the price will accumulate over the course of time, just normal consumer pricing index. But it was noteworthy that by redirecting the landfill out of the Thurlow depot, it was going to extend the life of Thurlow Depot, and we know that it was approaching very close to end of life. So the fact that we can extend it for a longer period of time was a positive thing by redirecting. So thank you to staff for putting this one together.
Mayor Ellis.
I just got a quick question for Director Reed, and I guess it could be answered as a yes or no. Price of bag tags, what we collect and what we spend in a contract like this, doing the quick math on it, we are still subsidizing bag tags. It looks to be around the $4.50, $5 our cost to get rid of a bag. I know it's done on tonnage, but in that range.
Yeah, there's a lot of variabilities on weight collected and so forth, but we are still subsidizing it slightly.
Thank you.
Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the report, there's one section where it says, unlike many standard service contracts, waste collection contracts involve a number of variables. I'm not going to list them all, but I'm focusing in on some of the customer service requirements. I've raised it here at Council, and I've certainly raised it with Director Reed directly. Some of the customer service aspects with E360S and what we experience in our community. For example, on many occasions, I've noticed the trucks are leaking organic waste on our streets that require cleanup from E360S after complaints are filed. I've seen myself personally, but also got complaints from residents where garbage receptacles are either tossed into the middle of the road, obstructing traffic or other services the city provides, or simply throwing them with force, in which case they could break. I'm wondering if Director Reed could outline some of the customer service requirements within the contract and how some of these customer service aspects can be addressed within the contract going forward.
Through the chair to Councillor Carr. During this contract and the development of it, these are some of the things that we've identified leading up to it. We're approaching the 7th year mark with the current contractor, which, the trucks are starting to age. So I do know that there's some issues. As soon as the new contract starts and seeing that it's a transition from the same contractor, they've assured me that as soon as the trucks arrive for the new contract, they'll be put into service, which is kind of nice to hear. Within the provisions, there are mandatory training, customer service training for all their staff within the contract, and there's also some provisions within the new contract that has penalty clauses. So if there is leaking trucks, there's penalties when they're identified, as well as customer service orientated things. So we are going to be working with the contractor to try to step up our game when it comes to the customer facing services like this, and we'll be working with them to try to address some of the issues.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments before I call a vote? Not seeing any. All in favor? Carried. Okay. 10A4, Bell Creek Land Exchange. And the recommendation is that the manager of Realty and Property Services report number MRPS-2026-09, Bell Creek Land Exchange be received. Could I have a mover? Councillor Enright Miller, seconded by Councillor Chatton. Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to speak to the report, if I may, and I have a bit of a lengthy report. But I would like to thank Manager McFarland and thank you for staff for the report and turning it around so quickly for council. I think the report does a great job of setting out the available options. At the same time, each of these options appear to require a significant amount of time, work, and resources. I'm not sure how much time we realistically have given the active application before the city, but I would very much like us to use the time that is available as effectively as we can. In particular, I hope there is an opportunity for staff to continue working with the Hanley Development Team, the appropriate environmental agencies, council, and the community so that every reasonable path has been properly explored. I also believe this report should be shared with the Hanley Development Team so they are fully aware of how the public feels about this land, and maybe they would like to engage in discussion for an alternative path forward. My goal is to make that, before any further report come to Council for a decision, Council has the best, most current, and most complete evidence available. I have some questions and comments about the approval process. I would like to go through my thoughts and questions, if I may, and make a motion at the end of my diatribe here. My comments are not intended to be confrontational, and they are certainly not intended to prejudge the planning application. I'm raising them for clarity, for understanding, not only for me, but for the many residents who sent letters in opposition of the application, and to make sure we are asking the right questions at the right time. What we do know is there is a substantial public concern about this property and a genuine desire in the community to understand whether there is a lawful and practical path to preserve more or perhaps all of the Bell Creek lands. We also know that the environmental and planning designations affecting this property overlap. The entire 35.4 hectare property is not in itself a provincially significant wetland, but the site contains or adjoins protected natural heritage features, and the proposed residential subdivision requires a zoning amendment. In my view, that means we need to be confident before any application is ultimately approved that the applicable no negative impact tests have been fully addressed. The Hanley Park North application remains active. The original proposal contemplated 156 units, with approximately 68% of the site retained in a natural state. The current proposal is for 103 units, with approximately 77% of the site retained naturally. That is an important change, but it doesn't eliminate the need for Council to understand the environmental evidence that supports the developable area. Staff has also correctly pointed out that a private landowner has a statutory right to submit a development application, and that the city cannot use the planning process simply to force an unwanted land exchange. If Council refuses an application or does not make a decision within the applicable timeline and the matter is appealed, the Ontario Land Tribunal can adjudicate it. And if Council ultimately takes a position contrary to a future staff recommendation, independent planning evidence may be required to defend that position. I understand and respect those legal limitations. I also understand that a voluntary land exchange, municipal acquisition, or another negotiated arrangement may still be possible, but that any such option would require willing participation, valuation, due diligence, funding, and ultimately Council direction. Where I think we need to further clarify is in reconciliating the current staff report with the environmental peer review record. The report states that the city has no knowledge of ecologically significant features on the developable portion of the property, and that the ecologically significant portion identified in the supporting studies will not be developed. I think that statement should be carefully reconciled with the environmental reviews already in the record. The 2020 Environmental Impact Study identifies the Bell Creek Swamp Complex as a provincially significant wetland and describes the developable parcel as being virtually surrounded by it. The city retained peer review also disagrees that dividing the woodland into smaller communities for the purpose of significant testing, and stated that the woodland should be considered as a whole. Based on the interior habitat criteria, the reviewer concluded that the entire woodland would be significant. The proponent's 2024 response similarly acknowledged that under the Natural Heritage Reference Manual criteria referenced in the review, technically all of the forest would be considered significant. That appears to be an important point of agreement in the record. If the woodland is considered significant, woodland that does not necessarily mean development is automatically prohibited, but it does mean that the no negative impact test becomes especially important. So I think it is fair for Council to ask whether those issues have now been independently resolved, reconciled, and clearly documented. There's also a question of timelines. The principal environmental impact study was prepared in 2020 and relied in part on field work conducted in 2018. There have been later addenda and peer review materials added, including environmental peer review documents in 2024, but we are now in 2026. So I wonder, are the biological inventories, field observation, and impact analysis sufficiently current for a 2026 decision under the legal and policy framework that applies today? Belleville's official plan provides strong protection for provincially significant wetlands. It states that no new development is permitted within the wetland feature or within 30 meters of it, and that lands adjacent to a provincially significant wetland within 120 meters requires an EIS, an environmental impact study, demonstrating no adverse impact on the natural area or its ecological functions. The official plan also recognizes that residential or other uses in or adjacent to significant woodlands may be permitted only where an environmental impact study demonstrates no negative impact on the natural feature or its ecological functions. The provincial planning statement likewise contains natural heritage protections and applies an ecological function and no negative impact test to develop the site alteration in or adjacent to protect natural heritage features. There's also the Conservation Authority Framework. Regulation 4124 now governs Conservation Authority's regulated activities, and Quinte Conservation advised that developments near wetlands may require a permit depending on the regulated area. A 2025 Hanley hydrogeological response document stated that the former 120-meter provincially significant wetland regulatory area was replaced by the current provincial-wide regulation, and that the proposed development is outside the new 30-meter wetland regulatory buffer. But as I understand it, the regulatory change does not remove the separate Planning Act and official planning natural heritage tests. There may also be current provincial species protection requirements to consider. Ontario Species Conservation Act 2025 is now in force. It protects species or protected habitats. If protected species or habitats are present, current provincial requirements may apply. I would therefore like to know whether the application has been reviewed against the legislation now in force, and if required, whether staff has received current species at risk screening, provincial advice, or any other necessary confirmation. So in summation, the question I am trying to resolve are: the report says the city has no knowledge of ecologically significant features on the developable portion, while the city's environmental peer review states that the woodland should be considered as a whole and that the entire woodland would be significant, and that the proponent's response acknowledged that technically all of the forest would be considered significant under the reference criteria. Could staff please reconcile those statements for council based on the full environmental record and the regulatory requirements that apply in 2026, and explain the city's present position? I'm not suggesting that the answer has to be provided tonight. This may be something that comes back in a future report before council reaches a final decision point. I want to emphasize again that I recognize the legal limitations identified in the staff report, and I'm not asking staff to predetermine the planning application. What I'm asking is whether, before council is called upon to make a final decision, staff can bring back a coordinated further response addressing three things. First, does the current environmental record fully satisfy the applicable no negative impact test under the legal and policy framework in 2026? Secondly, would any additional environmental study, update field work, or independent peer review be advisable before council makes its decision? And third, if council wishes to explore preservation of more of the property, what realistic negotiated acquisition-based or other voluntary options remain available, and what would be required to pursue them? I would also like to understand this: if council were ultimately not satisfied that the no negative impact test has been demonstrated, what additional evidence would be necessary before a decision could responsibly be made? And if council were to take a position different from a future staff recommendation, what planning and environmental evidence would be required to make the position defensible before the Ontario Land Tribunal? I'm also trying to find a path that respects the law, respects the landowner's rights, responds seriously to the public concerns we are hearing, and protects an important important natural area if there is a reasonable and lawful way to do so. If preservation is possible, I want council to understand how it can be achieved. If staff concludes that it's not possible, then I want council and the public to understand precisely why, based on current evidence and current law, because once it's gone, it's gone. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I have a motion to bring forward, and I know all of the questions that I said in my little epistle there will be answered by staff, but I do have a follow-up motion, if I may.
Okay, we're going to call on Councillor Thompson. He has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I agree with everything that Councillor Barb Enright has spoken. I'm going to speak a little bit in regards to staff. They presented this under the regulations that they're bound by. Now we're to the point where we have to make a decision on what's available to us. But staff have presented this report under the regulations that they're able to govern by. From my understand, they've had discussions with the developer. Developers changed with some regulations. So I'm really just giving a little bit pat in the back for the staff to prepare it as far as they have. And now it's up to us to make that final decision with the information that Councillor Enright Miller is going to request in the future. And I look forward to a future date, whenever that might be. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks to the Bell Creek Land Exchange report by Diane McFarland. So in the conclusion, it says, staff advises that a land exchange of this type requires a comprehensive evaluation, demonstrate a net benefit to the municipality and won't conflict with current legislative requirements, long-term asset management objectives, and introduces unjustifiable financial and legal risks. So what does that financial and legal risks look like for the city of Belleville? Who can answer that? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I see Manager McFarland there.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. At this time, it's a report on information only, and we would be required under your direction to go back and receive and get information on the cost of those legal requirements for delay and to acquire land, should we want to do a land exchange. And at this time, we have not received that direction to do that. It's just what is possible under the 3 criteria that you requested that we report back on.
I have a follow-up question for you. With the Bell Creek Land Exchange, this has been going on now, is it fair to say for a few years?
Yes, my understanding it's about 5 years.
Okay, so when a developer wants to do something and there's conversations around it, is there a time limit on moving forward on a particular project like the Hanley Park? Are we up against the wall with a time factor?
I believe there are restrictions on the application process. I defer to the Director of Engineering and Development Services to maybe give some insight on the timeline for their application.
Director Ashton, can you assist there?
Through the chair. This is an active application. They have been, their initial application was 156 units. There was a public meeting. Part of that was, preparing reports, us peer reviewing it, those sorts of things. They prepared a second submission, 103 units, came back, we had it peer reviewed, went to public meeting. There was a whole range of questions. I guess this evening there's more questions. So those are provided back to the developer to respond to. And then it would be a question of what's a reasonable time, though these are very large questions that aren't don't sort of have an immediate answer. That takes a lot of field work, a lot of expertise to answer and provide back. So as long as the application is actively moving forward, which in our view it is, then it's an ongoing application. At the end of the day, the planning department, the approvals department would judge something by how it would stand up at the Ontario Land Tribunal if it was ever appealed. So, the issue of what's fair to the developer, what's fair in terms of addressing community input and how that would be viewed. So it is active, it is ongoing, and we're awaiting responses from them from the latest round of public meeting comments.
Thank you.
Councillor Chatton?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I just would like to know if there was a no negative impact finding for 2026, if that has been found, or at any time over the last 5 years. Has there been a study to that effect? I didn't see in the report.
Okay, so
I understand what you said about it being a very complex question, but are we aware of any finding having happened?
In terms of those questions, I think that was a question posed through the public process, so we're waiting a response back from that, and then that would be peer reviewed as well from our own consultants.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Sue?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you to staff for work that has gone into exploring options to preserve the Bell Creek land as a natural and publicly accessible ecological park. I just want to have better understanding before we move forward with considering public funding, a land swap, or a land trust, or other potential funding models. Can staff clarify what Henley Development actually wants and what they may be willing to negotiate? We know what the community hopes to preserve, but I would like to understand the landowners' objectives, expectations, and willingness to explore alternatives to residential development. Have we fully explored that side of the conversation before asking taxpayers to consider the cost of preserving these lands? Thank you.
I'll refer that to CAO McDonald.
Through the chair to Councillor Sue, appreciate the question. I think from staff's perspective, we appreciate the conversation, the perspectives, and certainly the community input on the application. And I think the question is certainly one that we're seeking direction from council. Certainly the applicant is aware. It was appropriate that they're aware that council was going to be discussing their development application tonight, so they're aware that it's on the agenda. That's appropriate. But I think it's appropriate that if council is giving direction to staff to look at it further, that a discussion is had with them about council's intent. And so that we're aware of what their intent or what their appetite is for a potential of any or all of those options are. For a sale to the city, for a potential partial sale, for an exchange of property, for land trust, any or all of those options. Because I think without that clarification from the property owner, council can desire any or all of those options, as can the community. But what we're really dealing with is a private property owner who has an active development application in front of the city with appeal rights to the Ontario Land Tribunal that have been clearly identified by the planning department. And council's role at that point, if they're unwilling, is to approve or deny that application and then deal with the appeal of that to the tribunal. If that is the private property owner's desire, is to appeal the decision of council. And that's it. And we don't know that yet because we've not had that discussion with them, because we've not been directed by council to have that discussion. So ultimately, I know Councillor Enright Miller has said she has a following motion, and if that's the direction that council chooses to send staff in, then that's what we'll do. But at this point, we've not had that discussion because we've not had that direction.
Thank you, CAO, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. As yet, the costs have not been quantified, as Ms. McFarland has indicated in both her report and in speaking here today. But as my understanding, they'd include such things as negotiations with the developer, the legal requirements and the legal opinions that would be required, the valuation outcomes. My first question, therefore, is in the event that all of these things have a cost associated with them, is it fair to say that it would be on the taxpayers of the city of Belleville to pay all of those costs in order to accommodate the request?
CEO McDonald.
Through the chair to Councillor Brown. From our perspective, again, if staff is directed to pursue any or all of those options, we would look at any and all funding options, but I don't see another opportunity other than tax funded. I would defer certainly to the Director of Finance, but yes, you're looking at, we would require appraisals, there'd be surveys, we would be looking for land. We've looked at the inventory of city land that would be available for an exchange. In my estimation, and generally in staff's at this point in a cursory review, we don't have anything that is of sufficient size and characteristic, generally prepared for development and residential nature that would be available and ready to go. So we'd be likely looking at acquiring property if the developer were amenable to an exchange. If it were a straight acquisition, the cost would be tax funded, very likely. All of the professional services required would be tax funded. So, yes.
Okay. And if I may, a follow-on question. So as we know, this is still an active planning. It hasn't been resolved at planning or planning advisory at this stage. However, sort of trying to think through strategically what conceivably could happen. From the planning, if planning was to deny the application, it's fair to say that the applicant would have, first of all, an opportunity to go to the Ontario Land Tribunal to try and have that decision overturned. And then as a follow-on to the Ontario Land Tribunal, under Section 47 of the Planning Act, the Minister of Housing, I know there's more to it, but the Minister of Housing has the legal authority to override any local resistance. I believe that's the way it's framed on the Ontario, the Provincial of Ontario's website. So in the event that this was denied, is it conceivable that the applicant, given the amount of time that's been invested in this, would take it for appeal? And second of all, is there a risk that the Minister of Housing for the province could in fact overturn our decision and put an MZO in place?
Through the chair to Councillor Brown. So in the unenviable position of anticipating what the province might or might not do in this environment that the province is in, encouraging growth everywhere and anywhere through lots of programs, building faster, we've got Housing Accelerator. We just applied for a development charge rebate acronym program joint with the federal government for $8.8 billion across the country, or in Ontario alone. It is conceivable that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing might or might not look favorably upon a 100-plus unit subdivision. That is very likely, without me looking further, included in any one or all of those programs that I mentioned in the city's applications. So, but to back up further, yes. As a non-planner, it is well within the applicant's rights to appeal. No decision, once planning has decided that the application is complete and the time runs out, or a denial by council of the application. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I got a couple of statements, but just a question, just in terms of reading the report itself, and since it's there, I kind of want to dive into one thing that caught my eye. Page 2, second paragraph, says the present status of this application is that staff and the developer's agent are continuing to review plans and studies in the context of the current provincial policies and legislation with the intent of bringing back a favorable recommendation report to council once matters have been sufficiently addressed to ensure any remaining technical elements can be addressed as conditions of draft plan of subdivision approval. And I'm kind of hanging on the words of favorable recommendation. I was wondering through you to Director Ashton. I know as I've been on Planning Advisory Committee 14 and a half years. I've chaired it for the last 7.5. I'm very familiar with the process. And I know that, and it would be our expectation that staff would bring back a recommendation report that takes into consideration all the matters raised during the public meetings, of which there was 2, any written submissions, which I know there was a lot that we've received, very in-depth submissions that is Director Ashton referred to that take time to study, and evaluate them all against the provincial policy statement as well as the city's planning policies. Could the director just speak to the process and the words favorable recommendation in that report, please?
Yeah.
To you, Director Ashton.
Through the chair, thanks. I think that, yeah, perhaps there was just a bit of the wording was needs some clarification. So planning staff has not, I repeat, not reached a preliminary planning conclusion regarding the proposed development. The intention would be to recommend approval if all outstanding matters are satisfactorily resolved or would be resolved through conditions of draft plan approval. Because the land is proposed for development is already designated in the official plan as residential, staff would anticipate a recommendation in favor of some type of residential development in this location, whether it's one house, several houses, or up to the number of 103 houses as proposed in this current application before council.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the director for that clarification. I think that's important, that there has not been a determination. I just want to speak generally to the report itself, and I appreciate, and having listed out my resume on planning advisory, that there are many applications that come into the committee, reviewed through staff, go on to council, and are approved without a bat of an eye. And there are other times when there are issues that come up or there are contentious applications that have significant public input. And if you've sat through Planning Advisory Committee, I know as chair, I give a lot of latitude to the presenters. There's no time frames involved. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to submit everything so that staff then can thoroughly go through every single concern. And as I've responded to some residents, and I haven't got to lots, and I know that we've got a lot of, I guess, bot submissions maybe is the technical term through a website, point to the fact that there is an actual guide that the province puts out in terms of the Citizens Guide to planning and what's involved. And we also, as members of council, but also as planning staff, have to follow the requirements of the Planning Act. And, you know, when governing, residents expect their levels of government to respect the rule of law. And we don't get to cherry pick when we want to follow the law and when we don't want to follow the law. The rule of law is there and we all fall underneath that. No one's above it. So while I recognize that some applications can be very contentious and have a lot of public feedback, and feedback that is of good quality that really needs to be studied and reviewed, and that's exactly what's happening with staff. We have some applications that'll come in quite quickly and turn around very quickly. And then there's others that take a lot of time. And this has taken a lot of time in that this is the second version of an application. And because there is significant public input into this, I'm concerned that we are deviating off the Planning Act's requirements as far as the rule of law and following the criteria that's expected with an application. The more we go down this road, I'm concerned that the private landowner certainly has grounds to appeal to the OLT even now without having the application actually addressed at the city level. Number one, because of the time involved. But now, two, we're entertaining other variables that don't fall within the rule of law as it pertains to the Planning Act. I think it's incumbent upon us to wait for staff to evaluate all the input. I have met with one resident who provided significant input. He asked me to meet with him as chair of planning. I listened to what he had to say. I again reiterated that there's a process, that I have no insight into what that final recommendation is, that staff will bring that back to Planning Advisory Committee when everything has been addressed. And the fact that it's not back in front of Planning Advisory Committee tells me that staff are doing their due diligence to address every single concern that's been raised. And at that time, Planning Advisory Committee will have to evaluate that recommendation. We'll have to decide whether we want to agree with it or disagree with it. And then we'll have to come up, if the decision is not to agree and we're going against planning advice, then we need to come up with rationale that supports it to go to the OLT and be in a defendable position. But these are all legal requirements that need to be played out right now and following that process. And if it was the other way around and someone else had an application in, they would want their council and the committees thereof to follow that rule of law. And I think it's important that we just follow that, not muddy the waters. And I think when those bridges are crossed, that certainly other evaluations could occur if so necessary. But we are getting ahead of ourselves, and we're actually, for all intents and purposes today, evaluating a planning application in council before it has gone through Planning Advisory Committee and before staff have had an opportunity to actually complete the work that they're paid to do. And so I just want to throw that caution out to the discussion that we're having today to make sure that at the end of the day, we're following the rule of law.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll have to vote on this first, and then we'll come back to you, Councillor Enright Miller, with your motion, okay? Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of receiving the report? Okay, motion's carried. Can you read your motion out, Councillor Enright Miller?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the fulsome discussion of every side and in between, and it's good for all of us to hear. I would like to make a further motion that we direct staff to speak to the Hanley Park owners and gauge their willingness to engage in discussion about the options presented in the report, just as an aside while this process unfolds. Thank you.
And I have Councillor Chatton seconding that. Okay, any discussions on that motion or any questions?
Thank you. Recorded vote? No, that's okay.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Point of order. Sorry, could we have a recorded vote, please?
Yeah.
Thank
sure.
you.
Councillor Thompson, did you have something you want to add?
Well, I appreciate where Councillor Enright Miller's coming from, and I certainly don't want to deceive the public out there that we're not doing our due diligence. But from what I understand, what's happening so far, that staff are doing their due diligence to deal with. And I think it comes to Councillor Carr's statement that I think we're starting to muddy the water here a little bit. If we leave this with the process that it's supposed to be going through, we'll get the answers we need, because we already know the staff needs to deal with, because it's already been bringing forward a post possibly of land exchange or whatever that may be. I just don't want us to muddy this water any more than it is, according to Councillor Carr, so I give him credit, that I would, prefer to let it move ahead just like we're proposing and receiving it without putting anything else more in front of staff that maybe not keeping this in a straight line. I just think so I'm not going to agree on that particular motion. That's not saying I don't agree with having discussions with the developer and bringing more reports forward. I just don't agree with the motion. Thank you.
Okay, I guess Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since there's a recorded vote, I did want to speak to it. So the motion essentially is to approach the landowner to look at the various options that are outlined in the report. So, but we don't have enough information, at least I don't feel I have enough information. So if you were to look at them, the different options, land exchange. So if we give staff direction to talk to the private landowner about land exchange, we just heard from the CAO that we don't have any developable land that would be equatable to the land that we're trying to acquire. So right off the bat, we're not meeting that one. Municipal acquisition. So we say that we're interested in acquiring the land. However, we don't have a budget for it. This council's runway is running out, and at some point very soon, we're going to be in restricted acts territory, of which we're not able to expend funds. So then we have no idea conceivably what the value of that land is, and even got an evaluation in and of ourselves to know would it be something that we would want to consider. So we're going in blind, asking a developer of these options, of which we don't know the consequences of. So the developer comes back with a dollar figure, and then A, we don't have the budget for it. B, it's not something that the majority of council would agree to. So are we bargaining in bad faith? I understand that there's concern in the community. I get that. But if we're going to go down this road, more due diligence needs to be done, not just for the taxpayers in the public gallery, but for the entire 50,000 and everybody that pays a tax bill needs to, at least through us, know exactly what it is that we're going to go down and what we're willing to spend or look at. But to say that we're going to give staff direction to approach the developer on all these options when we have no costs, we're going in blind. And quite frankly, that's bad faith. Because at the end of the day, if the developer says, $20 million, it's all yours, conceivably, and if he's watching this meeting, he's watching the value go up, then what do we do now? Say, oh, sorry, that's too rich for us and we're going to back off? I know usually when you go in negotiations, you're going in with some type of parameters in your mind. We're just throwing Hail Marys here, but it's Hail Marys that are going to cost the taxpayer potentially. So that would be my concern of not having enough information on that side to then make an informed decision to put staff in a very difficult position to say that the municipality is interested in a land exchange, land trust, and municipal acquisition, but we don't know the cost, we don't know the budget, and everything else. Talk about putting staff in a bad position, and I'm not prepared to do that today.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Can appreciate the comments from Councillor Carr and Councillor Thompson. A few weeks ago, I was at a presentation about Hanley Park and what might be, well, at least what it might look like in the future. And after hearing the comments from Councillor Enright Miller, I don't know if it's a bad thing to have conversations with people. We're not at any level right now. I'm not voting or signing off on millions of dollars of loss. We're trying to get the conversation going. We just heard this has been going on for years. And I think there might be some closure that, I can't speak for Councillor Enright Miller, but the art of conversation has been lost through paper trail. And I think the developer might be very keen, and I don't know if he's going to be upping his ante, as that was just mentioned moments ago. I think a conversation around what's the next steps look like is where I'm going to support Councillor Enright Miller. It's gone on far too long, and the staff have done a great job already with the report. We're just going to tweak it a bit, add some stuff to it. Some serious decisions are being made here, and it's going to change the landscape of the city. It's not just for those in that neck of the woods. Many in our city use it for walking or culture, green space. We know that. So I'm going to support Councillor Enright Miller. I know you're going to speak to it, but let's keep the conversation going.
Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kelly, and thank you, Councillor Carr. I mean, we all are very passionate about this, and I get everything that's been said, and everything is true. The purpose of my motion was really to do that, to speak to the Hanley Corporation and let them know that we have this report, see if they're amicable to any options. Again, all we can do is speak to them, have staff speak to them, get the discussion going, and, you know, out of discussion maybe can come some different paths that we haven't even thought about. We heard at the meeting that was held about the property, there could be some private entities that may be looking at purchasing it from them, not the city of Belleville. There's could be other avenues out there to explore, but unless we have this conversation with them and maybe some stakeholders in Belleville with some ideas, we're not going to get anywhere other than get to a planning application and a vote. So it's just to open the door for them. I mean, it is their property. They are there to make money. It's valuable to them, but it is also valuable to a lot of people in Belleville. So if we can change the route and the course of this with dialogue, I'm all for that. So I stand by my motion, and thank you very much, everyone.
Any other comments or questions before we call the recorded vote? No, not seeing any.
Councillor Chatton?
Yes.
Councillor Enright Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Sue?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Brown?
No.
Councillor Carr?
No.
Carried by 5.
Okay, moving on to 10B, consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion and that council shall consider such items individually. Okay, is there any specific order to go around? Okay, I'll start with Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Carr.
10B, 8, 9, and 10, please.
8, 9, 10. Okay, Councillor Enright Miller.
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sue.
No, thank you.
Okay. Let me see here. Mayor Ellis?
B6.
B6. Okay, Councillor Chatton.
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
It's already been pulled, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, so we need a vote then for everything but those. Okay. So we'll have a vote on all other consent items with the exception of those being pulled. Okay?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Oh, don't you need a seconder?
Oh, yeah, I guess we do. Yeah, okay. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to Councillor Carr, I guess.
I just had a few questions on this, and I totally understand the principles of not renaming or naming the cul-de-sac with snow removal, park upkeep and that. But I was wondering if we could maybe walk them through of maybe putting their name on a street list. I know we have lists that list streets that we, from time to time, update. Maybe that might be a suggestion for them. I know builders pick them or submit them, but something like that could be submitted and looked at. And I don't know if I could send that to Director Reed or Kevin?
How about Director Ashton? Could you answer that, Director Ashton?
If you make a motion, we can, we'll run it by Hastings County to make sure it's an approved name and there's not a duplicate, and then we can add it to the list.
Okay, I would make that motion to get a hold of them and see if we could do a street naming, and if there was recognition for that, if I could get that seconded.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Any discussion on that? Okay. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So I do understand how it is, it has become part of the municipal road allowance, but I fail to understand how that presents a problem for what I understand to be a commemoration, something that's supposed to reflect something important to a family, to a community. And I just want to see what the harm is in being able to do that. Do we need just to get special permissions, or like what makes that, what precludes that from being able to be considered? If I could get an answer from.
Director Reed.
Through the chair to Councillor Chatton. It should have been noted as well in the report that that particular cul-de-sac at Eleanor Gardens is a kind of a unique. There's only about 2 or 3 other situations where that green space in the center of it was a very old design. As we see that street being redeveloped and repaved, redone, that entire green space in the middle would not meet any new or current cul-de-sac standards. So, I mean, part of the challenge is if we were to name it right now or at this time, in probably likely 10 years, when that street's reconstructed, that entire green space would be removed. So, I mean, staff is a little concerned that we'd be naming something and then we'd be coming back to get council to remove it.
I see, thank you. Just follow up to that, then through you. If that were to happen, it's because, again, obviously, this means something to this family. This means something to this community. Is it that big of a deal to go ahead and name it or allow them to name it? And then 10 years from now, if we cross that crossroads, to consider something else?
Through the chair to all of council, Councillor Chatton, in 10 years, I'm unlikely to be here, but just to play that through, the family may not be around, and it's just administratively, it's very unlikely to be caught that it was named, and we keep records, corporate records of all of the things that are named in recognition of citizens, people that have made big commitments to this, the corporation, the city, important citizens, and we don't want to lose sight of those. The reality is in 10 years or 15 or 20 when that happens, I like that Joe is very optimistic about the resurfacing program in cul-de-sacs, but the likelihood of it getting removed as we move forward and we resurface roads, a cul-de-sac of that nature is almost assuredly not going to have a center garden. I am almost as assured in my own mind that it will be paved over. And I don't like the thought of bulldozing someone's commemorative garden, almost assuredly. So I don't like our corporate record as far as it goes to thinking 20 years down the road, we'll know enough. The administration of the corporation 20 years from now to know that we named it in 2026 and that we'll replace it to the family's satisfaction somewhere else in the city. I would rather we do it once and do it right and that they're happy and it stays permanently noted in the archives of the history of the city.
Understood, and I can appreciate that as an answer. Thank you. Most times when people are looking for something that would be commemorative, it's because the people who are here now, and it means something to them. If in 10 years that person's husband, father, mother, wife, daughter, whatever, is no longer here, but they are here today, they've missed out on an opportunity for that commemoration. And I just find that to be maybe too much emphasis on the long term and not enough emphasis on the here and now and the present. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions, comments before I call a vote on that one? Seeing none? All right. Calling the vote. Did you say record? All right. All right, calling the vote. All in favor? Okay, that motion's carried. Okay, moving on to, for Councillor Carr, 8BH, Community Improvement Plan Application 120 Burnham Street, and the recommendation reads that pursuant to the Principal Planner Report, PP 2026-13, the Community Improvement Plan application for 120 Burnham Street in care of Artistic Holdings, Inc., be approved for the Community Improvement Plan Program 3, 4, and 15 in the amount of $197,000 to facilitate the development of a 38-unit rental apartment building containing 12 affordable unit dwellings, including 8 accessible units. And that's moved by Councillor Carr. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Ellis? Okay. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions through you to Director of Planning Staff. I'm just wondering when the zoning was approved for 120 Burnham Street. I do recall it coming to committee, but the date escapes me because there's been so many applications since that time, but I believe it's been a couple of years.
Yes, it was, zoning came before planning committee. It was approved, there it is, September 12th, 2022.
Okay, so Madam Chair, obviously been approved for a while and still no construction. And of course, staff are recommending approval of this CIP application. And this is CIP money that we've received through the Housing Accelerator Fund. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff, is there a time frame requirement for construction of the apartment building once the CIP application has been approved?
So through the chair, there is a requirement that the building permit be approved within 6 months of approval of the CIP. And further, the building code would have up to the CBO's discretion, the requirement for to start construction within 6 months after the issuance of a building permit. But if council would like to consider adding that upon the resolution, that would probably provide greater clarity to the applicant.
Okay, Madam Chair, I appreciate that comment from the director, and I'm going to make an amendment, the motion as it reads there, and that construction commencement occur within 6 months of the issuance of a building permit. And I'll speak to that amendment very quickly.
Okay. Do we have our seconder? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, and just, I recognize the fact that there are some requirements within the building code and what have you, but I think it's incumbent upon council to make sure that we actually have some timeframes involved. The other side of this is the CIP money, and I mentioned this, is related to Housing Accelerator Fund money, which we then have to report back to the federal government or CMHC to ensure that we're meeting those requirements. And so this is, again, where we don't have a lot of control over the whole building process as it is, but where we do have control, we should be putting in some set timeframes to get those foundations in the ground so that we can report back that that money that actually the federal government has provided us is actually achieving results here at the local level. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Brown?
Thank you. I just want to confirm my understanding of the report. It's my understanding that a building permit had already been issued for 120 Burnham Street, and that it was subsequently withdrawn prior to this CIP application. Can I just get confirmation that a building permit was applied for and issued and then subsequently withdrawn?
Director Ashton?
Through the chair.
Thank you.
A building permit was applied for. There was still some outstanding, a number of outstanding issues. Around that time, he had applied for an extension under the old CIP program, and so he subsequently, and then when that was denied, he withdrew his application, or when the recommendation report came out, he withdrew his application and withdrew his building permit and applied under the new CIP, which had a requirement that he apply before a building permit's issued, or before a building permit is applied for.
So again, for clarification, so as a rule, there's a time limitation between when the CIP is approved and when the building permit application must be resubmitted. Given that there was still a number of outstanding items on the previous building permit application, do we anticipate that the developer will be able to conclude and resolve those issues before the next building permit application is applied within the 6 months? Sorry, applied is the wrong word. Building permit is, the application for the building permit is submitted.
Director Ashton?
We will, if council approves this application, we'll be contacting him and letting him we'll be very clear about what the requirements are and that he has 6 months to get a complete application. I'm assuming he will resubmit his current, or his building permit that was previously under review, so he knows what those outstanding issues are, and ideally he will be able to complete that through his consultant in time.
Alrighty, so I apologize for getting the clarification. I just want to make sure I understand the process. The amendment on the floor is construction within 6 months, but he also has 6 months to complete the building permit application. Does that mean that we're shortening the timeline on the permissible time for the building permit application?
Director Ashton?
I was sort of conferring with my notes, so if I didn't catch the amendment that Councillor Carr recommended, my apologies.
Want to answer?
Yeah, just for clarification, the amendment was in that construction commencement occur within 6 months of the issuance of a building permit.
Anything else, Councillor Brown? Nope. Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. After reading the report, so at 120 Burnham, the gentleman could have received $714,000. Now, we know that according to the report in the community improvement plan, we have $990,000 in that kitty. So he's been awarded $197,000. So my question is, what's the process? If you can walk us through why, according to the chart, it says this person is eligible for $714,000. Just explain to all of us why he gets the 197, so everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Director Ashton.
Okay. I will sort of defer to Tom and Bailey to provide that feedback to you.
Through the chair to Councillor Kelly. Great question. The CIP outlines a number of parameters for funding. It gives council the ability to raise and increase, decrease funding as appropriate as it comes forward. Typically, we do want to assign funding as a first come in, first serve out. The point we're at now is we have to start evaluating multiple applications coming in. So the parameters for it come into the priorities section of the CIP, which outlines accessible units as kind of the number one priority, affordable units, and then total number of units. So we balance those with the number of other applications that we have in the pipeline for those. This one was ready to bring forward. That's why it was presented tonight. I think it's just under 25% of the remaining funds that we've allocated to the CIP. That CIP funding is initially intended to last till the end of 2028. We're probably going to be through that much quicker. It is a 40% bump from their initial CIP, or sorry, their former CIP application. And then there's also the value of getting it up front versus over a 10-year dispersion of that. So under the former CIP, it was a tiered program where they would get a tenth of that every year throughout that process. Now they're getting that up front. So it's a 40% increase directly up front, so that present value versus future value has a significant benefit for their development. So all those kinds of things, the other applications that we have competing for the same funding, that all goes into that evaluation process.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we call that vote? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay. Now we need to vote on the main motion as amended. Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's carried. Okay, on to, looks like B9, Fire Fleet Contingency Purchase, Report FES 26-04, that pursuant to the Director of Fire and Emergency Services Fire Chief Report Number FES 2026-04, the 2026 capital budget be amended to include the 2026 Fire Fleet Contingency Purchase in the amount of $100,000 to be funded by the Asset Management Reserve Fund. Let's see, do we have that all? That's it, okay. All right, and that was moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Brown. Discussion, Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In the report, the fire chief notes that there was an accident with one of the pumpers, and it's out of service. We do have backups. There is an allocation of $100,000 being recommended to basically provide for another backup as a rental. I'm just curious as to, through the city's insurance policy, do we have a loss of use clause or anything specific, particularly when it comes to emergency service vehicles, which it's the preference obviously for public safety to not have them out of service for an extended period of time and then incur the costs with operating a rental?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, that was one of the first things we looked into was does our insurance provider cover us for such an occurrence? You think of your own home policy. If you wreck your car, normally you can get yourself into a rental. Our policy does not cover that premium. We'll cover the damages, but will not put us into a rental or leasing type vehicle. So that's kind of why we've had to pursue the other options that have been listed out.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Through you to the fire chief. While we may not have loss of use on our insurance policy, I don't believe that we were the cause of the accident in question. And I'm curious as to whether or not the individual that actually struck the fire truck, whether their insurance would cover any of this cost.
To the chief.
To the chair. So we don't have that information as of yet on cost recovery. I can't get into a whole lot of details around the accident, just due to some other legal to follow. So as it stands right now, it's being looked at, but I don't have a final answer on whether there will be insurance coverage coming through a subrogation case.
So then to the Director of Finance, if I may. This would be to allow the fire department to, the fire and emergency services to proceed with, renting isn't quite the right word, but securing a replacement vehicle, but there could be future opportunity through insurance claims to recover some or all of that cost. Can you confirm?
Through the chair to Councillor Brown, that's correct. This funding is needed to put in place the rental or interim solution. As mentioned, the insurance company will look for all our cases to subrogate or go after other insurance companies to recover in the case where the damage isn't our fault.
Thank
you. Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just through you to the chief. Thanks for the report, Chief. And I agree that number 4 is probably the best option available to us. I'm just curious, a used pumper, it's probably a municipality pumper that's reached its useful life, I would expect, and maybe like from a Brian's auction or somewhere where municipal vehicles are purchased from. Have you ever purchased a used, and what comes with it? Is there warranty? Do you guys look it over? What's your life expectancy on a used pumper of this nature?
The chief.
Through the chair to Councillor Enright Miller. So I have purchased used fire apparatus in the past. We purchased one here in Belleville a couple of years ago, where we were in a bit of a bind with our fire apparatus for very different circumstances, but we did have to purchase a used vehicle. So some do come with warranty, some don't. It's dependent on the carrier. There's options here in Canada. I will be very honest, it'll likely end up being an American vehicle that will be purchased. There are used fire apparatus sales companies out of the US that specialize specifically in that. Our money will go a lot further because we'll be able to get something with a little bit of life left in it. So as you mentioned, are these vehicles that have hit their end of useful life? Quite possibly through another municipality's asset management plan. One of the things that we're looking for, and when I request $100,000, that's not to get us a new pumper or something that's going to stick around for a number of years. This is something that will get us a reserve pumper. So here in the city of Belleville, our asset management plan outlines a frontline pumper at 15 years when we look at the urban side of the house. And then it'll go into reserve for another 5 years. So when we're looking, and we've already been starting to look in hopes that this would be an approved report, we are going to get something that is close to that 20-year mark, but I definitely don't want to go over, so that we can still keep within the asset management plan, knowing that something, 17, 18, 19 years, it's near its end of life, but it's still got a bit of life left in it. It meets our plan's requirements, and will be that stopgap for about a year until our damaged pumper is back into service.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 8B10. Belleville Medical Services Agreement Amendments, that pursuant to the Manager of Physician Recruitment and Retention Report MPRR 2026-11, the additional clauses identified in report number MPRR 2026-11, be included in all future return of service medical agreements with clinical family physicians and nurse practitioners. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Okay, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I request a recorded vote on this motion. Again, and I don't want to get too into the weeds as I normally do on this one, but with limited municipal funds, I don't think we should be buying doctors. And it also confirmed by the CEO last meeting, the city's recruitment efforts are duplicating the Ontario Primary Care Action Plan, and even, I would say, doubling funds within the Hastings, Prince Edward, Ontario Health Team catchment area. But having said that, I also respect the fact that the majority of council sees that the expenditure of municipal funds and duplication of provincial funds and provincial responsibility is still a good thing to do. So I've requested these amendments simply to place some guardrails on municipal taxpayer funds to ensure a focused return on investment versus the carte blanche approach currently in effect. And with that, we have hired, or we have signed primary care, well, sorry, not primary care. We've signed healthcare workers to secondary care in our hospitals, which is not primary care. And we've also, I would say, well, certainly based on what's been reported to us here at Council, we've been doing all the legwork for the Hastings Prince Edward Ontario Health Team, who, ironically, is receiving millions and millions of dollars in provincial funds. So I think at some point in the future that's got to be sorted out, and we need clarity as a community as to who's paying for what and how, so that there are no duplications. But at the very least, this provides some guardrails to ensure that not only hours of work are there, but the fact that residents will be attached and there'll be expectations on those attachments. There'll be regular reports that'll come to council, so we at least have a good reporting structure on those returns for investment. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions before we call the recorded vote? Seeing none? Okay.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Chatton?
Yes.
Councillor Enright Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Sue?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Mayor Ellis?
Yes.
Carried by 9.
Okay. So 10C, information items, recommendation that information item 10C1A be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any comments? Any questions to that? Seeing none? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. All right. Okay, so the recommendation is the Committee of the Whole does now rise and return to council at, what's that, 5:36 p.m. Sorry, all in favor? Everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I need a motion for that bylaw numbers 2026-099, 100, 101, 102, and 103 be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. New business. Seeing none. Motions. Councillor Henderson's motion, water supply to residents of Marshall Road, Bridge Street West, Peter Street, and Moire Street. The council directs staff to meet with the residents of Marshall Road, Bridge Street West, Peter Street, Moire Street. Will report back to council by September 28th meeting with a plan to implement a temporary water supply to households in these areas that are experiencing periodic or permanent water deficiencies until such time as a permanent municipal water source can be installed. Moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Chatton. Discussion, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, through you, thank you. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present the motion this evening, and thank you to council for your future consideration. I'd like to begin by correcting something I had previously said in the last meeting. According to the city's own report, ENG 2026-11, presented at the July 27th council meeting, there are actually 75 homes, according to that report, currently without a municipal water source in that area. And that's the area of Marshall Road, Bridge Street West, Peter Street, and Moira. Initially, I believed that number to be 34. But based on the city's own report, it is clear that the problem is significantly more widespread than I had originally understood, and that number represents more than 75 homes. It represents 75 families, 75 households, 75 groups of people who have been waiting, some for decades, for something that most of us take for granted, and that is water. As a result of that same July 27 report, these 75 households, many of whom had hoped that a solution to the decades-old problem was finally within reach, were instead met with disappointment and further hopelessness when they learned it could be at least another 11 years before they could even be eligible for some form of stable municipal water service. 11 years, it's a long time. This is after being promised municipal water for more than 2 decades. Some of these residents have spent more than 25 years of their lives praying for rain simply so they can do something as basic as wash a dish, wash their clothes, or take a shower. You might think I'm describing life in the 1930s or the 1940s. I'm not. I'm talking about 2026 in an urban area of City of Belleville, Ward 1. These are not isolated rural properties in the middle of nowhere. We are talking about 75 families living within urban boundaries of our city who are dealing with dry wells and unreliable water supply. And that problem does not stop there. Many of these properties also have aging, overtaxed, and partially failing septic systems, creating additional environmental concerns that cannot be simply ignored for another 11 years. And then there is the part that is particularly difficult for the residents to understand. They have watched water and sewer infrastructure consistently be extended into subdivisions in the areas around them. They have watched servicing recently be provided to a proposed development on Avonlow Road, where at the time of servicing, there wasn't even a single home or resident living there, and there still isn't. There's not a home built, but it's ready to go. Meanwhile, some of the residents sitting here tonight and some watching from home are relying on rainwater and gym memberships just to meet their basic needs. There are homes with municipal water and sewer approximately 400 meters away at Haslett Court. There is more recent servicing to the new YMCA building on Bridge Street West. These examples demonstrate something very important. It can be done. They're doing it. It's been done, so it can be done. I'm not suggesting that staff can simply snap their fingers and have a permanent water and sewer system installed tomorrow. I understand that infrastructure projects take time. I understand there are budgets, engineering requirements, design work, approvals, and competing priorities. And I genuinely do appreciate the work the city staff are doing. But while we work towards a permanent solution, I'm asking this council to recognize that these residents cannot be expected to wait another 11 years for access to a basic necessity of life. The ultimate goal must be a permanent municipal water service to these families with sewer installation as soon as reasonably possible. But until that permanent infrastructure can be provided, I'm asking council to provide immediate interim relief through temporary water delivery and or adequate water storage for these affected households. Not years from now, not after another study, not when another infrastructure plan comes forward. Now, not 11 years from now. So I thank you again for your consideration tonight, and I will also take this opportunity to provide notice to the clerk that I will be requesting a recorded vote on this motion. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak on this? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. And there's nobody more agree with the situation that we have on Marshall Road, because I've dealt with some of these public for a number of years, and maybe I should have been a little more forceful, like Councillor Henderson has been at this situation, and maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. These people are without water. and at times, and they would like to have city services. And I appreciate that. So before I agree or disagree with what is being proposed, temporary water service, what does that look like from staff?
Director Ashton or?
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson. In my past experience, a temporary water service is something that is seasonal, that is put in when you're doing rehabilitation or reconstruction on water services and water mains that we're repairing or replacing. I'm not sure how we would run a temporary water service without extreme costs for 74 residents in a 2-kilometer area, and be able to do that temporarily. It would have to be something permanent, and then it may have to be replaced in the future when you run the sanitary or other utilities when that comes to fruition.
So in that light, and we need to investigate all situations here, and so if we have to go more, and obviously we'd have to go more permanent, underground, right?
I think the intention is, if council does want staff to proceed with this motion, then environmental services, engineering and development services, and finance will meet many times between now and September 28th to look at all the considerations and come up with options that could be possible. And then also some of the key considerations of what that could entail. So that would be an option, is something seasonal versus something that might loop around and service those roads.
So my next really concern is, does staff have the opportunity and the time to bring that extensive report back by September 28th? Or do you need more time? Because, and I'm not trying to delay this, I just want the best answers as possible, so that if we have to look at making an application to 2027 budget, if that's what it is, or 2028 budget, can we get that clarification in that short a time, or do we need more time to bring the correct answers back so that we can make sure that these people get what they want and what they need in the future? So do you have time as staff to bring that extensive report? Because you can't do it above ground, obviously, so you're going to have to go underground. So does it make sense to do a temporary one underground, if that's feasible, or should we be looking at a report back from you saying, okay, we're going to do this now and it's going to be $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $20 million? And I'm not saying what it could be, and I have no idea, because I'm not an engineer.
If council directs for September 28th, we'll, meet regularly, and we'll provide as much detail as we can within that timeline. We may not have all the details by that timeline. There's a lot of variables. We would have to look at pressure system, like whether there'd be enough pressure, those sorts of things.
Okay.
So if there is a date, we'll aim to give you the best information within that timeline. If, obviously the longer the timeline, the more detail we can provide and the more information we can provide.
And really what I'm trying to get at is, for these residents that have waited as long as they have, I don't want to put any false hopes in their minds at this stage. I want us to move as best we can, get the service to them, but I don't want to give them any false hopes that this is going to be solved in 2026, which may or may not be. I just don't want them to get that feeling that this is done, it's over, we're going to fix it. So I respect your honesty about possibly not having it for September 28. And if that's the case, you will give us direction to say we need more time and so on and so forth. Is that right?
We will report back on the full information, the fullest of information that we have. So we will, if this is a priority of council, we will pull staff and review the matter and come up with options.
Okay.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of questions for staff, if I may. The first being, what are some examples of limitations or concerns with a temporary solution, regardless of when it's in? So, as an example, if it was water trucked in, would the resident have to have a cistern? If it was piped in above ground, what would be some of the implications? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Director Barlow? Or is that Dr. Ashton?
Through the mayor, Councillor Brown. It would all come down to what would be the most efficient and effective way to deliver that service to the residents at the time. That's what the options we'd go over for the report to bring back. And it would have all the allocations for what the cost would be for the different options.
Thank you. And then as a follow-on question to that, if a temporary solution could be identified, could you give us some examples of the type of costs the residents themselves would experience?
Director Barlow or Director Ashton?
So we would, so the temporary water would be sort of run to the property line, and then it would be the responsibility of the property owner to connect and change their systems over. I don't have that exact cost, but there would be a cost. I guess it all as well depends on the geology of that home. Some have high fractured limestone, maybe some are fortunate and don't have high fractured limestone. So it would be running that line to their house, changing over the system in their house. That would be if council provides direction for staff to meet with residents. We would try to get some examples within the community so we could have that discussion with residents as well during those meetings. Do you want anything else?
I have two more, I apologize. So again, for both directors, if I may, what are the implications to city staff, our asset management plan, and our current schedule if this motion was to move ahead?
Give that one to Dr. Ashton.
As I said, Director Ferguson, Director Barlow, and myself have already had discussions. We've indicated that we'll pull staff off of other projects to address this motion, especially if it's for September 28th, and we'll focus on collecting information and trying to provide for options as best we can before that September 28th meeting. So in terms of the asset management plan overall, I think Director Ferguson can speak to that, but essentially the discussion is is it a capital asset, and then what other projects get moved, sort of thing, out of the way to accommodate that. So what is the priority, sort of thing, and that would be a decision of council, I guess, once reporting back and options are sort of provided.
Thank you. And my final question, does this open a Pandora's box by looking at simply Ward 1 and this particular area? As a Ward 2 councillor, I am aware that we have a number of properties that fall within the urban service area that currently do not have access to water north of the 401. Similarly, I live less than 10 kilometers from City Hall. I live in a village that does not have water, and our wells frequently go dry, especially in drought months. We've been, knock on wood, lucky so far this year with the rainfall. But are we opening a Pandora's box that if somebody's well goes dry, there's now going to be an expectation that the city is going to solve the issue until such time as their potable water returns in their particular well?
A question to, we'll give that one to Director Ashton.
CAO.
Give that to CAO then.
Through the mayor to council, that is more a question to ask council. That's a decision you're making, and you're asking staff to provide you options, but you'll ultimately make that decision. So from my perspective, it's a question you need to ask yourselves. We have a number of areas in the city that are as close as the residents that are in question right now, or closer to water systems in the city of Belleville that don't have access to the water and wastewater system, and we're dealing with one right now. And I don't diminish the importance of access to potable water at all. But the extension of services is a question that council gives direction to.
Respectfully to our CIO, my question is, are we opening a Pandora's box? Or another way is, are we setting a precedent by expediting one and not looking at water holistically across the city, including Ward 2 areas within the urban boundary that currently don't have that service?
Through the chair, my answer is yes.
Anybody else? Have you got something quick, Councillor Thompson? You
Yeah,
spoke
just a
once.
quick, just clarification. If we vote on this to bring a report back, are we committing ourselves in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Henderson referred to temporary water delivery or storage, yet refers to temporary water supply. So I'm, just for clarification through you, perhaps Councillor Henderson could clarify. So temporary water supply would be some type of temporary solution that engineering and environmental services would come up with, and not, as you said through you, Mr. Mayor, temporary water delivery. You're not suggesting a truck. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Carr. What I am suggesting is that city staff meet with the residents, find out what residents are impacted, and find a solution for them until we have a permanent solution. Whatever that solution looks like, I'll leave in staff's hands. And I'm not suggesting that 75 families all have dry wells. So this might not even impact 75 families. Maybe they don't need it temporarily. But there are some for 25 years that have, and it's been way too long. People cannot live on sump pump water, and they cannot live on rainwater.
If I could, now that I have that clarification, I appreciate the concern, and as Councillor Brown pointed out, we have areas in the urban service area where people have struggled with their wells as well. Some have had new wells drilled as a result. I have no issues with getting information, and that's fine. We're not committing to anything today, but I just want to touch on a couple things. Is number one, residents were promised water, and I've heard that statement several times, and I'd like to know if there was ever an official direction of the city that promised water out there, or was that perhaps maybe a councillor or a mayor of the day that promised it many years ago? And I know that area is an annexed area of the former Sydney Township, which opens up other variables as you come into a city area and an urban area. And the other thing I want to touch on, and I've been following along some of the news related to this issue, and one particular news agency, it caught my attention when it talked to the fact that taxpayers didn't have water and wastewater. And I know that everyone around this table understands the difference, and I'm hoping that that news outlet would at least articulate it correctly, that just because you pay property taxes doesn't mean you have water and wastewater services. And at no time does property taxes fund the capital or operating costs related to water and wastewater. They're distinct. And I've seen that many of times even in my own ward where people say, well, I don't even have water and sewer and my taxes are high. They're separate bills, separate services, and just because you have one doesn't automatically mean the other. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. Question through you, Mayor, to staff, and this is something that is more of a question that you can explore through the report, and I don't want to put you on the spot per se, but given the fact that Councillor Henderson referred to the fact there are 74 residents within a 2-kilometer radius, and some of those residents may not want to connect on, but yet we have the pipe that will have to travel around that area. And the connection charge bylaw was changed, so there's no one that has to be forced to take the service. But given that typically as we see the expansion of water and wastewater services, a bulk of that infrastructure is actually funded through development charges, which then gets it to that local level. So is there a need, and perhaps something to explore, that in addition to the connection charge that a resident may be willing to take on with the bylaw, or decline it, because they have that option that this council's approved, would there be a requirement at least to look at a local improvement bylaw because you're implementing infrastructure specific to that area that wouldn't be wider development charge related?
I think that might be the treasurer. Brennan? Treasurer Ferguson?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr and all of council, that's something that we've had discussions about as well. So when we're bringing back options and the reporting on the cost recovery and funding models that would be brought forward with each option.
Okay, thank you. Look forward.
Anybody else? I just want to add something to this, and I'm trying to pull this out of memory, and I know we don't have a lot of institutional knowledge left here. Everybody's retired, but I believe in 2004 we had a motion or a public meeting of putting sewer and water to Point Anne, and the residents were brought in. I think it was at Fish and Game Club on Elmwood Drive, if I remember, and the cost was laid out to what it was going to cost the residents at the time. So hopefully staff can come up with a proposal when they come up with this information of the hookup charge. Because if that's not known and it's upwards of $50,000 to hook each house up that's privately owned, and that's a cost to them, we've got to consider everything. So hopefully, Director Ashton, you can come up with those numbers, maybe look back to the 2004 meeting and see where it kind of went sideways. But that's all I got to comment on. Call the vote, recorded.
Councillor Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Sue?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Chatton?
Yes.
Councillor Enright Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Ellis?
Yes.
Carried by 9.
Notice of motions, anything tonight? Seeing none, announcements. We'll start with Councillor Thompson and work around the room.
Yeah, I just want to just note that today we did another grand opening. Last week we did another grand opening. The Memorial Arena is almost full except for the banquet center. I just want to give a credit to the downtown, to the small business person that's coming to our community. We opened, as they say, a barber shop today. That's 3 barber shops on Front Street. Can never remember that happening. But the momentum that this downtown has in the last couple of years is amazing. So I want to give credit to all these entrepreneurs that are bringing down Belleville to make it what it is. And hopefully in the future, the DBIA is going to try to get a sign just at North Front and Front Street, I guess, before the old bridge, saying shopping downtown straight ahead, because people are coming here, the guys from, and we had the the hospitality one that we did a few days ago, the barber shop, these guys came from Montreal, Toronto, and Peterborough. So credit to the downtown and look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the left side? Seeing none, moving up the right side for announcements. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, 3 announcements tonight. So when we start council meetings, we have the mayor gives the land acknowledgement. We recognize all Indigenous peoples, including First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, that call Belleville home. And we talk about building relationships with the Truth and Reconciliation. There's 94 calls to truth and action in the Truth and Reconciliation. So this weekend I had a chance to represent the city of Belleville at the 39th annual powwow in Tyendinaga with the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Part of the focus that they have for the 444 municipalities is to build relationships with Indigenous communities that are close by. And we know how close Tyendinaga is. Just want to thank Chief Ardon Miracle and the Tyendinaga Mohawk Council. They were so welcoming and including me. We're building these relationships over the last several years. Opportunity to see traditional singing, arts and crafts, food, music. It was really an educational weekend, and so many people I recognized from Belleville at the event this past Saturday. So the City of Belleville continues to take building relationships important, and we appreciate the work of Indigenous neighbors, friends, as we continue to build those relationships. This weekend in the City of Belleville, it's the 5th Caribbean Festival. Starts Friday, big day is Saturday downtown. Just some fast facts for you. Last year, 12,000 plus attended the Caribbean Festival. Economic impact over $1 million to the city. These are facts, I'm not making it up. And the hotel rooms, over 800 in the City of Belleville, were all booked. We have a strong committee of about 15 hardworking people from all different pockets with Caribbean history. And this year, Montreal will have a strong presence along with our connection with the City of Toronto. So big days Saturday in downtown Belleville. We also have an event on Sunday. It's called the Caribbean Jam. It's a fun breakfast at the Jerk Spot here in Belleville. You can't miss it, right across from Reed's Dairy. Also, too, coming up, we won't be back, but this is happening next week here in Hastings County. Longtime councillor Brian and Jackie Daniers and Colin and Whitney Daniers are hosting the Hastings County Plowing Match and Farm Show. It's all next week, August 19th and 20th, and we wish them well on that. I just pulled some facts about the farming sector here in Hastings County. Economic impact, huge. There's like 63 in the Belleville area farms operating. We see a lot of their produce and their crops at the farmers market every Saturday in Belleville. So big shout out to all the farmers and good luck to the Deniers family next weekend with the Hastings County Plowing Match and Farm Show. That's all I have for you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Announcements, proclamations. August 30th is Auto-Inflammatory Awareness Day. August 13th is International Overdose Awareness Day. Month of September is Arthritis Awareness Month. Month of September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Month of September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And September 13th is World Sepsis Day. I'd also like to make a note that we had awarded 3 Workplace Inclusion Charter announcements. 4. Lastly, I would like to recognize and welcome the 4 new signatories to the Workplace Inclusion Charter: the Cavanna Quinte Arts Council, Alzheimer's Society of Hastings Prince Edward, and Belonging Redefined. The Workplace Inclusion Charter recognizes employers and organizations that are actively creating workplace cultures where people feel welcomed, respected, valued, and empowered to contribute. Charter also recognizes that inclusive organizations often extend those values beyond their workplace, helping to build stronger, more connected, and more welcoming communities. Thank you and congratulations. With that, I need the confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw Proceedings of Council 2026-105, confirmed bylaw be read and passed August 10th, moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Discussion, all in favor, carried. Motion to adjourn at 6:10. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Carr, all in favor, carried. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everybody.